Hello, listeners, and welcome to another exciting episode of Standing Post. I'm your host, Cody Starkin, and in this month's episode, we bring you a gentleman who heads our volunteer chaplain program for the U.S. Secret Service. The program currently consists of more than 144 local volunteer chaplains of various faiths throughout the United States who serve our personnel and their families in their time of need. We are currently looking for individuals to join the ranks of our volunteer program, so if you're interested in joining after listening to the episode, we have the information in our show notes to start that process. Now, please welcome to the show, Chaplain Mark Arbeen. Chaplain Mark Arbeen, thank you for coming on the show today to basically, speak about the chaplain program and tell the listeners about who you are and what you do. So I guess let's kick it off. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Cody, thank you so much. I am Chaplain Mark Arbeen. I am the Chaplain Program Manager for the agency, and I'm also a Roman Catholic deacon assigned here in Washington, D.C. area.
Oh, welcome. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. Again, as I continue my journey about learning about the Secret Service and the different facets of it, and just kind of understanding who the people are behind the scenes and who makes the organization run. You're just adding to the long list of people that we have on the show to be able to tell their story and tell their basically work story to the listeners. And what I want to do first with you is, if it's okay, is to kind of maybe start with, as I do with all my listeners, the background, like before the Secret Service. Who were you as a person before you joined the organization?
I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, or suburbs of Chicago, in a little town called River Forest. After graduation from high school, I knew at that time in my life that I was looking towards ordained ministry of some sort. Did not know where, when, how, or any of that, but I had a very strong feeling that that's where I was being led and called to going forward in my life. So to prepare myself to become better well-rounded, I decided to follow in our family footsteps and serve in the military. Initial idea was to do it for 4 years, so I joined the United States Navy. I actually loved the Navy so much I reenlisted and served for a second 4 year hitch before I was offered a scholarship to the University of Illinois, where I studied business economics, which is a very interesting field of study for somebody who is going to be in the clergy. Normally, you study religion or philosophy or something, something along those lines. But I also thought if I'm going to be an ordained minister, I'm going to be running a church or something like that. I got to have some knowledge of business. And I hate to say it, I really am not good at foreign languages. I didn't want to do anything in the liberal arts and sciences. So I studied business economics at Illinois and graduated in 1997. While I was in college, I was going through the process with the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago, and we'll get into why I did switch later. And upon graduation, I then moved back here to the DC area and attended Virginia Theological Seminary in Alexandria, which is on Seminary Road. I know a lot of our people have driven past it probably. After attending seminary, there was some issues that had come up politically and religiously, theologically that I was struggling with. And so I held off my final ordination to figure out where I was going in my life. And while I did that, obviously I had to earn some money, so it was really a good idea. I had a business degree, and I started working for the government. I started the Treasury Department in federal finance. I had a great time there. Then I wanted to expand my role a little bit, learn more, get more into the economics world, and served over at the Bureau of Labor Statistics for a short period of time, where I was the one who put out the monthly local unemployment rates for the different cities and MSAs, metropolitan statistical areas throughout the country. And then I decided to get more involved and try to earn money. Because again, I was still struggling.
Hmm.
And at GS7 and GS9, I really wasn't earning the type of money I thought I could. And I didn't understand the progression to GS13 in my field.
Okay.
And it was a very interesting time frame for me. And so I decided to go in the private sector for a little bit. And that's when 9/11. And 9/11, I believe, was the biggest change for me as it was for this nation. When 9/11 hit, I was working for a firm out in Chantilly, Virginia, where we were cable installers for the State Department, for the Central Intelligence Agency, for embassies throughout the United States, or throughout the world, I mean, and also some corporate entities, the United States Postal Service, things like that. I was not a technical person, so you see, I don't understand all the technical. I was more the business field side of it. I managed all the installers as the field manager, and so I went into that world thinking that would be a good career for me until I decided religiously what was going to happen with me. And so, like I said, 9/11 hit. 2 days after 9/11, our company was given a contract, verbal contract, to move the section of the Pentagon that got hit into Crystal City and have them up and running within a 1 week after 9/11.
Hmm.
And they called me in to manage the employees for that. So that got me into a world that was new for me. I didn't understand government contracting and everything. But I will say it this way: I kind of fell in love with that aspect of the government by doing this. And so I felt instead of managing people, I want to go manage the contract. I want to learn more about that world. And so that's what I did. I went to another firm, started learning how to uh, manage contracts on the contractor side until I was finally hired by the Department of the Navy as a contract specialist. After many years of doing that for the Department of the Navy, and I met several agents and uniform division officers over at the vice president's residence at the Naval Observatory, and they urged me to consider coming into the Secret Service. That was in 2010, and which I did. I decided at that point maybe it was time to apply, um, and I was lucky enough to be hired by the agency. Unfortunately, it was also during a period of time with the budget taking so long, so it took almost a year to get through the entire process, plus security clearances.
Hmm.
And so in May of 2011, I was brought onto the agency in our procurement shop where I served there. And then I've been with the agency ever since.
Awesome. It's a very interesting story, and as far as where you come from and what you've done and what you've done before coming to the organization. So I appreciate you sharing that with me and the listeners.
It's very varied, which I know for a lot of our employees, it's the same thing. We all come from different backgrounds, and we all have very different paths on how to get to where we are today.
So, Chaplain Arbeen, you signed on to the organization. You waited out a lot of the obviously going through the security clearances and everything like that, and you were with the procurement division. So now, can you walk us through a little bit about where from the procurement division to becoming the Secret Service's first chaplain of the agency?
Yeah, so I only served in procurement actually for a year because I learned very quickly that it wasn't so much contracting I loved, but program management and the acquisition side of program management, which contracting is an important piece, but it's only one piece of it. There's a whole other area, and with budgeting and everything else. So while I was in procurement, I decided I was working with the technical security division, and they were like, "We need somebody like you over here to help out. We have a lot of major programs, and I was working on their contracts, a couple of classified programs, things like that that I had a background in. So after about a year working on TSD contracts, TSD decided to bring me on board in their side to help them in the program management side of the house, as well as help them with procurement paperwork and stuff that I will say that they needed help on because I was doing that in procurement. Might as well help them over at TSD. So I spent many years there. Actually, I was over there from 2012 until 2017 when I assumed this position. So 5 years in TSD taught me a lot. I also made a lot of good friends over there. but it taught me a lot on the operational side of the agency versus the administrative side of the agency. And I really did appreciate the lessons I learned over there because they've come in very handy now in my new position. As we remember, Director Clancy, when he was our director, he started the Spark program.
Mhm.
Um, and this now will go into how the chaplain program came about. Um, a uniform division officer, at that time Sergeant Alvin Wells, he's now Lieutenant Wells, um, wrote a spark that said this agency needs to have a chaplain program. If you look at local law enforcement, state law enforcement, county sheriff's departments, things like that throughout the country, most have some sort of spiritual program associated with them. The nature of our job in law enforcement, whether you are an agent, an officer, technical, or even an APT, like for our agency or for the administrative people in local law enforcement, it's a very stressful job, and it's a very unique stressful job that a normal pastor or normal rabbi or normal imam would not understand because what they're focusing on is growing their church or their synagogue or temple. They would not be focusing on the nuances of a person's position. And so it many years ago, the idea of a police chaplaincy came about, and like that, local departments had been developing that. The FBI about 12 years ago started a federal side. Now these were all mirrored also against the military chaplaincy program, the Bureau of Prison chaplaincy program, and the Department of Veterans Affairs chaplain program, which were the three major established ones in federal law. So the FBI system came on board, and federal agencies started seeing how important those were. So when Sergeant Wells um, put the spark in, our director at the time, Director Clancy, already knew about those other agencies and the other programs and said, yes, we need to have this. Director Clancy assigned the research for a possible chaplain program for the agency to Assistant Special Agent in Charge Julia Simpson. Julia was a brilliant agent, well loved within the agency, who had done a lot of work herself spiritually with her church. And Director Clancy, I guess, knew this. And so when Julia received the tasking, she went around and she talked to several other people who had been involved in chaplaincy type work, looking at this program at different times. So myself, Angela Moss, who's one of our CMR editors, Sergeant Wells, Jesse Lane, who is in the EDI, who is head of EDI,
What is it
and
and
we
what
got together
is
and
sorry, what is EDI?
equity, diversity, and inclusion is one of the four programs in equity and employee support services that the chaplain program falls into.
Okay.
And so we got together and met with Julia and started doing a lot of in-depth research, giving her some information we had already garnered, especially about the FBI program, and what we learned on local and state matters too. And then she was putting together the policy and trying to get ready for a presentation. Unfortunately, Julia passed away
Hmm.
um, while doing that. She died on October 31st, 2016, right after her last assignment up at the UN General Assembly. When Julia died, I had already been in the process of ordination for the Roman Catholic Church, and I had heard about it. She was going to my church at the time, and I went to the priest. I said, I want to help with the funeral. He was fine with that. I didn't tell anybody in the agency because I did not know that that was needed. And when I got there was some discussions going on between our uniform division and honor guard and the pastor of the church trying to figure out how things were going. And so I started listening in on that and seeing if there was areas that I could speak both languages, if you will. And then Director Clancy walked in, who I had actually never met before. Saw him around the building and everything else, but I had never actually shook his hand. And he asked me who I was, and so I told him. And he said, "Hmm, chaplain program is very important. We need to get that up and running." I said, "Yes, sir, that'd be a great thing." In the meantime, he didn't tell me that he had already made another assignment then to Miss Carolyn McMillan, who at that time was our EEO director. She became the executive of Equity Employee Support Services right around that same time, and word got to her that I had been involved with this, and so she asked me to help her out a little bit on a part-time basis. And so we got permission from TSD and Tech to do to help her out, which I did. And after several months of rehashing some of the work that we had done, then writing policies and stuff like that. So in July of 2017, a final policy was signed off on by the deputy director, approved by the ERB, and submitted and implemented. I then had to actually apply for the position of chaplain program manager, even though I'd been no, but that was a good thing,
Yeah.
and it allowed a lot of people to look at this program and see what the qualifications and stuff the person would be. And eventually, I was the one selected. It was a very detailed competition. I was happy to go through it. Learned a lot about myself during that process too. And in December of 2017, I assumed the position of chaplain program manager and in a full time position.
Well, first I want to say
It's a long
congratulations.
way to get to where I am today.
Yeah. Well, I want to. Well, first I want to say congratulations for making the position. I didn't realize the story about the senior special agent who passed away, and it's terrible to hear. And so I didn't realize that actually coming into this interview. So I
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to mention Julia specifically is I still look at her as the inspiration for this program. Without her diligency and without her fortitude pushing things forward as fast as she did, I don't think we would be even to now where we are today. We would have gotten a program up and running eventually, but I don't know how much longer beyond that it would have taken. And I know she's looking at us, from above, looking down and saying, "You've done a good job, guys. Keep it up, and I'll be watching over you."
was there anything that you
She
did?
actually is the one that developed the emblem for our office using the Secret Service star with the chaplain banner. We still use that emblem today, and I always like to honor her when I make these type of presentations.
To kind of go back during your journey, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had mentioned that you were almost kind of on a spiritual journey through your earlier career up to this point. And the question I wanted to ask actually is, did you find yourself continuing to like take on the roles and the roles and responsibilities unofficially and tried to provide counsel as a chaplain, not necessarily in an official way, but maybe to provide solace to somebody or to be able to provide some type of comfort. Something that I've found through the chaplaincy program in the military. Is that something that you kind of offer before becoming the actual chaplain for the Secret Service?
I did what I could for those that wanted it, those who knew me and knew where I was with my ordination process. Yes, a good example of that is some of the people in TSD. They've now retired. Did come to me. They asked me, sat down and started asking me questions, especially if there was a death or something like that in their family. They just wanted somebody to talk to listen to them, and that's what I was providing to them, just not in an official capacity. Yeah, it's good. It was a good thing for me to be there, but I kind of wish we did have the program way before we did. But it took us a while, but we're there now.
And I think I can speak for a lot of the employees here within the Secret Service that we're happy to have the program available. And that's a reason why, I have you on the show today is to kind of talk to the public and to the employees out there about, this program. And I think that's a good transition regarding basically roles and responsibilities. Can you kind of lay out what you do for the organization and what you provide and offer?
Sure, I am the chaplain program manager, which means it's my job to recruit, screen, run through a selection process, and then manage the volunteer chaplains that we have throughout the United States. Right now, we have 144 chaplains, and in 2.5 years, getting that many, I think, is pretty good. We want though over 300, and so there's still a lot of work to do.
Is there a particular reason to
So
that
my
number?
job is to go out and recruit them. Huh?
Is there a particular
I'm
reason to
sorry.
that number?
Yes, we have a lot of different offices throughout the United States. We have field offices, resident agencies, resident offices, as well as former presidential details and other offices within the DC area. And each office should have at least one, and I've learned actually two chaplains per office. So if you look at a roughly 170 offices throughout the United States, do that times two, you're looking at 340 chaplains. Some offices may not have to. I may only be able to get one because of the size and the location. Others will have much more. LA and New York, Chicago being the three big ones that have multiple chaplains. Because I try to also not just have chaplains, but multiple faith groups represented at those offices because there are so many people there. So I
And
don't want to just limit it to one or two.
right, and that might be a good next question is like, what are you specifically looking for? What is a federally recognized religion that, if I was a spiritual leader, and how would I know, or what specific religions can actually volunteer and go through the chaplaincy program?
So that's a very interesting question because that is one of the things we did struggle with as we developed this program. The first thing we did is we met with the Armed Forces Chaplains Board. Now, the military has been having chaplains since 1775. It was one of the first things they developed once those services were developed with the Navy and the Army. So chaplaincy has been around quite some time. So the military has perfected, if you will, how to recruit and how to obtain chaplains. So we started there. And it turns out they have a system called endorsement, which the FBI has picked up on, which now ICE has picked up on, and we use also. And what that is a way for a state group to screen individuals for various chaplaincy programs. They screen it based on not just what the agency is looking for, but also what their own faith group looks for to put forward. So that way we don't rely on, we're not just saying for one person, we're looking at a faith group and saying, what's this faith, who can get the endorsement through the faith group. We don't get involved in that process. We just ask them to obtain the endorsement. Once they obtain that endorsement, it makes it a lot easier for us to then push forward on our internal processes. But it's that endorsement. So we don't even ask the question, are you a recognized faith group? Because there is no such thing in the United States. We just say, can you get an endorsement through your faith group?
Okay.
And we have a listing of about 145 or so faith groups that have endorsing agents that we work with, that we also obtain through the DoD and through the Veterans Administration. And we work with those people to help our chaplains get the endorsements they need.
Okay. And so if I get the endorsement and I apply and I get the job, what would be a day in a life of a volunteer chaplain?
That is unique by the office that they would work in.
Okay.
Um, right now, our chaplains are limited to 8 hours per month service to the agency. So, however, that 8 hours is broken up between an agreement between the special agent in charge of the office and the chaplain, that's how the time is spent. It could be come in, every Friday for a couple hours. It could be once a month. It could be whatever. Um, and then how the office wants to utilize the chaplain services, whether they want to put the chaplain in an office and have people come to the office or whether they allow a chaplain to speak at a meeting. Um, if they have a district meeting or an office meeting, um, you know, whatever is needed, and then also to see if there's anything going on at the office that is stressful at that moment. Like they just had a major visit of a presidential candidate or president or the vice president, or they're about to go or they're about to go on a major trip, and just be able to talk things through to make sure everybody is 100% sharp so they can focus on their job and not focus on whatever issues they may be having.
Chaplain Arbeen, is the chaplaincy program open to female chaplains?
We have 10% of our chaplains are female. When we first started out developing the chaplain program and getting chaplains on board, we were looking to get chaplains on board. We wanted to try to spread out faith groups as much as possible, but we weren't really focusing on men, women, African Americans, Hispanics, Pacific Islanders, or at that time. We've now developed more and more as we are looking at that as well as faith groups. The one down, the one issue that can come up, we haven't had this issue yet, but the military has had this issue. If a faith group won't endorse a female, then we can't have a female that faith group.
Okay.
But we haven't had that issue yet because every faith group that I've worked with that a female prospective chaplain has been from has gotten the endorsement.
And is there any specific religions that are currently requested right now that you'd like to see filled with a volunteer chaplain?
There are three specific ones that I am desperate to find: Muslim, Buddhist, and Hindu. Part of that is the religious leaders within those faith communities don't always understand the endorsement process for their faith group. And then also, there's not that many of them in the United States for us to recruit from. But I am doing everything I can to do that. I'm actually now in conversation with a Capitol Hill police officer who's about to retire, who happens to be a Muslim imam.
Okay.
And once he retires, I can put him through the process to become a Secret Service chaplain if he so chooses.
And what does that process look like? If I again, we talked about it before with those that may want to provide, those 8 hours a month. How do they go about starting that process? I guess once they know they have the endorsement from their religious community, what would be the next process? Like, how do I go about actually submitting an application?
Well, the first step actually is not so much get that endorsement. The first step is contact me.
Okay.
And the reason that's important is I want to talk with them a little bit more and have them prepare spiritually, see if this is what they are really called to do. When you hear United States Secret Service, what you see are the men and women who stand behind the president, the vice president, protecting them, or the officers surrounding the White House, or things like that. What you don't see is the hard work and everything that our people do. All they see is the glamour side of it when it's put forward on the news or put forward on advertising. And I get that. But understanding and feeling called to help everybody in the agency, not just agents, not just officers, but every single person and their family. We're one of the few programs that the families are part of. Also, EAP also is can be heavily family orientated. All to this, we want to make sure that they feel called to this type of ministry because it is a ministry. It's not something that is essentially glamorous. It's definitely not something that's out front. We don't want our chaplains to be out front. That is the job of our agents and our officers and our APTs.
Well, I was going to say, I also imagine too that they would also have to be welcoming of other faiths because the person that they may be working with may not be of their faith, but they would also be required or at least need to be able to provide that spiritual leadership or comfort or counsel to somebody that may be having trouble that day.
Correct, and that is extremely important, especially in a federal environment, because as you know, we don't endorse religion. We do not endorse any type of proselytizing. We don't allow it at all. Each chaplain must must agree that no matter who they are ministering to at that moment, that they are willing to do so without any type of proselytizing. What I like to tell our chaplains, and what I also tell, I do myself, is I use my faith to feed me internally and spiritually, so that I can help others use their faith or spirituality or even no faith to help feed them at their time of need. That way, I'm not proselytizing. I'm just being present to the person when they need it and how they need it.
Regarding the chaplaincy program, is there anything that I might have missed or anything that you'd like to add at this time regarding the program?
Just that we are diligently searching right now for chaplains. Even during the pandemic, uh, I'm out. I'm recruiting by email, by phone, by word of mouth, through the podcast. Hopefully, we'll get some chaplains who are saying yes, I want to be part of this program. But the other thing too, and this is to our people, is that we are here for you and your family at all times, and at all times you need us. We are what we call a ministry of presence. So our job is to be present to you when you need it, how you need it, when you need it, not when we want to provide it, but when you need it. That's the only agenda that we have, is to serve the people of our agency and their families at their request. Second, if there's not a chat, we have a list on our internet page of all of our chaplains, and if there's not a faith group representative that you would like to see, let me know. I will do everything I can to search out a chaplain of that faith group to put on our list. And last, and this is definitely not least, um, I want our people to know that each chaplain daily prays directly for our members of our agency, our families, and our mission. That is a huge support to our people that we provide on a daily basis.
Well, Chaplain Mark Arbeen, as we close up, again, appreciate all the work you've done for the organization and coming on the show and talking to the listeners out there. Got a personal question for you.
Yeah,
What's the best thing or what's the most enjoyable thing about your job?
getting to know our people. As I said, when I was in procurement, I got to know some of the mission, but I didn't really get to meet a lot of the different people we have. When I got to CSD, I started expanding that. And then now in this job, I am really expanding. I have traveled to roughly 100 different offices that we have throughout the United States. I've been to the UN General Assembly several times. I just was at the Democratic National Convention this year. I would have gone to the RNC, but COVID prevented that. Um, hopefully, if it's called upon, I'll be at the inauguration, and any type of different summits that we have. Just getting to know our people, meeting them, and just trying to be that presence to them has been the most fulfilling for me. Um, managing people, managing the chapels, managing a program is one thing, but getting out there and being hands on with it also has been fantastic. Um, my first foray into this actually occurred officially, formally, when Special Agent Noel LeMagan passed away.
Hmm.
Um, being with his family, I'm still in contact with his family, um, and being with the agents of the presidential detail that served with him, helping out with the ceremonies involved, it got me really jazzed up for this job, for this position, in a way that is only, in my opinion, comes from God. It's not something that I would have done on my own. Um, it is definitely directed by the Almighty for me. Um, and I feel immensely proud to be able to serve the people of this agency and their families.
For more information on how to join our volunteer chaplaincy program, please refer to our show notes for this episode. The information is located there for you to start the process. For more information about the Secret Service or how to join, please go to www.secretservice.gov. And until next time, listeners, stay vigilant.